YouTube, it's your boy FPLK man, and I'm back here with a brand new video. And today I've got for you my Game Week 33 team review, as well as my Game Week 34 team selections and some potential transfer plans in order to navigate blank Game Week 34. I know a lot of you guys have the free hit 34 chip active and you are looking for the best free hit draft. So in this video, I'll be showing you guys the best free hit 34 draft, as well as the best players to buy in order to navigate this game week. I also have a chart which shows the most high EO players that will be going to Game Week 34. So when you're buying players, you know which players to buy. If you're playing defensive to protect your rank, or if you want to attack, you will know which of the differential to go for. So without further ado, let's dive in. So there you have it. For Game Week 33, I had total 60 points. My old rank was 637 in the world. I nearly dropped half my rank. Now I'm 1.3k in the world. It's a big red arrow, but again, kind of expected a red arrow going into that week, considering the fact that I didn't really attack the double game week. I think I only had about 7 double game week players, and I also had other players that are quite disappointing, especially my transfer in Saka. Well, I did actually want to blank. Looking at hindsight, perhaps I shouldn't have gone there. Just kept Palmer. But again, he was too much of a rank threat. As you guys can see, he was 106% EO. Almost half the game in the top 10k did captain him. So if he did anything in that game and I didn't own him, that would have hurt me severely. So it was more of a defensive move, damage control, but luckily he didn't return. And then he got Soboslai, continues to disappoint. He was on 2 BPS actually after the game ended, but the day after they changed it for some reason. Again, a bit disappointed with that. And then you got Saw in a double game week. He's only got 3 points. Extremely disappointing. I should have perhaps maybe taken a -4 to get Bowen in. But again, that's hindsight. Can't complain too much. And then you got Salah, who I also wanted to actually blank. So as you guys can see, I actually had 2 players going into the game week who I really did want to blank. Both Salah and Saka, as their EO was quite high. And they were captained by quite a few players. In the back, this is where my shining light was. All my defense actually returned. I only had 1 attack and return, and that's Mateta. He came off the bench versus Arsenal in the second game, and he returned. He scored a beautiful goal. And that's about it, to be honest. Marmoush blank, my captaincy was disappointing. Isak blank, another disappointment. And the whole midfield, to be honest, absolute disaster class. It was not too much of a great game week, but again, those who were on free hit went with Triple Villa. They were rewarded. There's a lot of people that went with maybe Trossard or Marino. They were also rewarded. Double Arsenal defense also paid dividend if you went with Kivior. So it was a bit of a damage control for me. I'm not too mad considering the fact that this is a game week where I was slightly surviving. To come away with only 1.3k rank, still good. I still have a striking chance of potentially winning FPL, which I do think is slim now. But again, mistakes were made, picking the likes of Soboslai instead of Bowen or Mbemo. I also made a mistake, which is obviously picking Gordon over Murphy on my wildcard. So quite a few mistakes I've made. I also had Clivert again, who was injured. So this is what put me back, but can't complain too much. Let's move forward now. Let's move on to my game week 34 transfer plans. So as you guys can see, for Game Week 34, your boy is looking to take out Mateta for Cunha, who does have a great fixture on paper with Leicester at home, followed up with Man City, Brighton, Palace and Brentford. Man City is not too great, but again, Cunha is that type of player that he could score versus any top team. We've seen this happen this season over and over again. His fixture again in Game Week 36 is Brighton, where I will be free hitting. I wouldn't need him there. But in Game Week 37, he does have Palace, followed up with Brentford. 2 decent fixtures, to be honest, during the season. So not too mad to pick him. However, this transfer is not locked in. If Pereira does say that, Cunha is not likely to start come Game Week 34, I may not go there. I may probably go to Chris Wood, which is my second favorite option, because long term, as you guys can see, he does have great fixtures, which is the entry point with Brentford at home, and then you got Palace, Leicester, West Ham, Chelsea. These are great fixtures to end the season. However, I do prefer Cunha for this week, as he will be the most high EO player, perhaps even captain. And then you got Ismail Sarr, who's been really disappointing. He had double-double. He only came with 1 return, which is an assist, I think, in game week 32. And that's the only return he got. So it's quite disappointing. His counterpart, Eze, did end up getting, I think, 3 or 4 returns in the last 2 weeks, which is a bit of a big loss in the field. But again, can't complain too much. I'll be taking him out for Jared Bowen. Again, that transfer is also not locked in. My dilemma is currently between Jared Bowen and Mbemo, as well as Clivert. I'm leaning towards Bowen simply because of the fact that I do need him for the next 2 weeks, where he does play Brighton and Tottenham. Really 2 good fixtures. I'll also need him in Game Week 37, where he does have a tough fixture in Forest. But again, come Game Week 37, I could bench him and buy other players. That way, I could have him for Ipswich to end the season. So Jared Bowen looks like a really good transfer in, considering that in the next 5 game weeks, you get 3 or 4 really good fixtures. So yeah, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer. but there are obviously other alternatives, and West Ham are not the greatest attack in the world. That is the only downside of Jared Bowen. Just to, again, I'm going to repeat myself again, guys. This will be a -4 for me. I have one free transfers. I'll be taking a -4 to bring in Jared Bowen as well as Cunha. However, these transfers are not locked in. It is dependent on the press conference and what news we hear. So now let's move on to the Game Week 34 team selection. So as you guys can see, I'm lining up with 10 players in total. I do have one defender that's starting. He has a blank game week. He'll probably obviously get 0-pointer. However, I do like my team overall. I got Verbruggen versus West Ham, Nico Williams with Brentford, Trippier with Ipswich, and Konate with Tottenham at home, where they're most likely to win the league. By the way, if they win this game, they win the league. And then you got Salah with Tottenham as well, Bowen, Brighton, Soboslai with Tottenham, Murphy with Ipswich, and then you got Cunha versus Leicester and Isak versus Ipswich. So as you guys can see, I do have quite a few players that play promoted teams, and along with the Liverpool boys who are looking to win the league. I'm expecting that to be a high-scoring game. So let's hope Konate and Salah can get involved. Salah does have the captaincy armband currently, but again, Cunha is a really good alternative. This will all depend on what we hear from Pereira in the press conference. If he gives indication that Cunha will be benched, I'll most likely pivot to Chris Wood, as I said previously, and the captaincy will be on Salah. But at the moment, you could argue potentially going against Salah with Cunha, who does have Leicester at home, and they've been conceding goals for fun. Overall, the team does look good. As I said, I have 10 players. I could take another -4. I'm currently already on -4. I could take a -8 to bring in 8 Nori or Cucurella for Munoz. But again, that'll be a late deadline decision. I'm not locked in on that yet. Let me know what you guys think, if it is worth bringing in Cucurella or 8 Nori. I think if I was to go for one, it will perhaps be Cucurella. But again, I don't know yet. I think this team is good enough to, somewhat give me a great arrow this week. Again, it's about survival for me because I am on free hit 36, where there's going to be a double game week. Let me know what you guys think. Now let's move on to the best free hit 34 team. As you guys can see, for Game Week 34, this is the free hit draft I have for you guys. I do have Sales starting, who's got Brentford at home, along with Trent Alexander-Arnold. We did hear some positive things about from Onslaught about Trent Alexander-Arnold, where he did say that he's world class, he rates him highly, so perhaps he may get the nudge ahead of Bradley. But again, I think it's the risk worth taking, and I'm sure we'll get more news come the deadline. And then you have 8 Nori, of course, who's got Leicester at home, promoted team. I do recommend you go for him there. If you want to be a bit different, maybe you go for Smedo, but I do prefer 8 Nori over Smedo. And then you got Trippier with Ipswich. You got 2 defenders that are playing promoted team. One more thing, there is an alternative for sales if you do not fancy Forest defense. You could go for Leno, who does have Southampton away. However, I do not rate Fulham defense that highly compared to how highly I rate Forest defense, as they're going for Champions League as well. So I do think Sales is a bit better in that sense. But again, Leno does play a promoted team. So the backline does look quite strong. As I said, there's an alternative. If you don't like Trippier, you could go for Livramento. If you also don't fancy that, maybe you go for Cucurella. But I do fancy a Newcastle defense, as they're playing at home against a promoted team where they're going for top 5 as well. In midfield, you got Jared Bowen, Luis Diaz, Murphy, and Salah. A lot of people will say, why don't you have Palmer or Mbemo, as they are going to be one of the most highly owned assets going to this week. I would not blame you if you were to choose, for example, a Mbemo or a Palmer ahead of Luis Diaz. Completely understandable. Or if you were to even ditch Bowen for Mbemo or Palmer, perfectly makes sense. If I had to drop one player in this team, that I'll probably drop Bowen for either Palmer or Mbemo. But the rest of the 3 I do think is really solid midfield. I mean, you will really want to attack that Tottenham fixture, especially because Liverpool are going to win the league. And then you got Murphy, who's been on exceptional form, playing Ipswich at home, right? Obviously, you could also take a punt there instead of maybe Murphy go for Barnes or Gordon, but I think there's a bit of a rotation there. So I'll rather be safe in that spot. And we've seen how explosive he is in the recent weeks. So I think Salah, Murphy, and Luis Diaz is locked for me in midfield. And then that final spot between Bowen, Mbemo, and Palmer depends on who you fancy. I'd say I would go with Bowen, Palmer, and Mbemo. That's how I rank it. In the forward position, you've got Raul, Isak, and Cunha. I think it picks themselves as well, to be honest. The only dilemma is whether if you want Raul or Chris Wood. I personally would probably say Chris Wood, but again, it's Southampton fixture, it's hard to pass. Plus, Muniz is not there, so I do fancy Raul against Southampton. Again, he's a bit of a troll. When I did own him versus promoted team in the past this season, he did not reward me, so I do have a bit of a bad blood there. But at the same time, the fixture is there, you gotta target it, right? So I do think Raul is a really good option this week, and Isak obviously no-brainer, Ipswich at home, as well as Cunha. I think there's not much place that you could be too different, to be fair. I mean, you could choose not to go for Trent Alexander-Arnold, but I think the ceiling is so high that it is worth it. That's the one spot you can obviously play around with. You could also play around, instead of Sales, you can go for Leno, which is a template pick. Also, you can go for, instead of Bowen, you can go for Palmer and Mbemo, as I said. So these are 2 or 3 spots that you can play around with. Otherwise, this is a really strong free hit team. Let me know what you guys think in the comment down below. Now let's move on to the best buy slash picks in game week 34. So as you guys can see, I do have, in terms of goalkeepers, I do have Leno up top as well as Pope and Sells. There's no ranking really. I mean, you could, based on fixtures, that's how I'd probably rank it. However, I do rate Sells highly in the Nottingham Forest defense. So as you guys saw in the free hit team, I do have Sells there. However, if you're buying, I would also probably prefer Sells this week. And then in the defender's position, I'll probably say Nuri is not a buy because the fixture is really tough after Leicester. As you guys see, Man City, Brighton, Palace, Brentford. I don't see too many clean sheets there. That's why I'm hesitant myself to buy him. And then you've got Trent, which I think is a buy, unless obviously if they win the league, then obviously they'll be on the beach, and I'm not sure how much minutes Trent will get. But again, he's perhaps a buy slash a pick on the free hit 34. You also have Trippier slash Livramento, where I think is also a buy, considering the fact that they have good fixtures in around the doubles as well as the blanks. And then you got Nico Williams slash Milinkovic. Again, I think Forest defense is a buy, whether you go for Sells or Nico Williams. And then you got Kukurea and Kirkers. Kirkers is actually a nice shout. I think he's a bit of a differential. A lot of people are actually ignoring the Bournemouth defense, consider the fact that United may rotate versus Bournemouth. But again, it's an outside shot if you want it to be different. And then we got midfield, obviously Salah slash Diaz. I think if you're buying this week, I don't think Diaz is a buy, but you could take a punt on him. But the problem is it's only a 1 week punt. That's why I'd rather have him on free hit than instead of buying him. In terms of buying him, I'd rather, buy Clivert or maybe a Bowen or Mbimo. I think those are the players that I buy. But in terms of free hit pick, I would probably have Diaz as well as Murphy, and you can obviously have Clivert as well. As well as Bowen, whichever fixture you prefer. Clivert is also an outside shot. Instead of Bowen, as I said in the free hit, you could have Clivert as well. They do have United at home, which is a decent fixture. As you can see in the fixture ticker, they are green. So, yeah. In the forward position, Cunha slash Strand Larson. If Cunha is obviously a doubt, you can go for Strand Larson. And then you got Isak, Wood, Raul, and Evan Nilsson. Obviously, I also want to give an outside shout out to Welbeck. Obviously, João Pedro is not available. He's got suspended for I think 3 game weeks now. So that means he should be nailed. And he's got good fixtures coming up, as you guys can see. West Ham, Newcastle, Wolves. Not really actually too great, but it's a good entry point. One key thing I wanted to mention, if you're navigating blank gaming 34 and you're looking to free hit in 36, which is my strategy currently, I do think the best investment is to go with someone like, for example, a Jared Bowen, who has a really good fixtures in gaming 34 and 35, as well as a good decent fixtures to end the season in gaming 38. Hence, that's why I'm going for him in my team. I also like to give a shout out to obviously Mbimo, who has really good fixtures and is not likely to blank. And his fixtures, obviously, entry point is not too great, but again, to end the season, he does have decent fixtures with United, Ipswich, Fulham, and Wolves. And then you've got the Wolves asset. To be honest, I'd probably only go for a Wolves attacker if it's Cunha, who does help us, to be honest, because he can score in any fixtures. And then you got Wood, which is also a great buy. I don't think Raul is a buy, considering his fixture does get tough after Southampton. However, Evan Nilsson, I think, is a decent buy as well. I think obviously Chelsea assets been disappointing. Personally, I wouldn't probably recommend anyone. Maybe Kukurea, but I personally don't recommend anyone else. But if you want to go for Newcastle assets, they're also really good for our strategy. I do think Newcastle assets such as Livramento and Trippier, they also help us navigate the blanks as well as the doubles coming up. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Now let's move on to the projected ownership rates for the players in Game Week 34. So as you guys can see for Game Week 34, these are the projected ownership rates for the players such as Salah, Luis Diaz, Palmer. You can see Salah is 98.2%. You got Luis Diaz with 77%, Palmer 69%, Barnes, Murphy, they're all quite highly owned, as well as Mbimo, Clivert. Bowen is surprisingly quite low owned, so it could be a bit of a differential if you're going there. Same with, obviously, you've got the likes of Elanga and Minte. And then in the forward position, you got Isak, who is also like highly owned, as well as Cunha. So these are the players that you potentially don't want to back against if you want to predict your rank. Welbeck is also surprisingly quite highly owned. I mean, I guess West Ham is a decent fixture. Raul is 21% owned. He's got Southampton, makes sense. A lot of the free hitters would have him. Chris Wood is also he's not really that highly owned, but he's a good option. And then you got Evan Nilsson, which is a bit of a differential as well. In goalkeeper position, you got Leno, Pope, as expected. The free hitters will have them. Sells as well. In the defenders position, obviously, you got Nori, Trippier, Sessegnon, and Alexander Arnold, who are also highly owned. I think the Fulham manager did say that Harry will be back soon, Harry Wilson, so there will be some competition for Sessegnon. Hence, I didn't have him on my free hit, to be honest. So yeah, if you want to take a risk there, you could, but it's a bit of a differential punt. Could be risky. Kukurea as well, quite highly owned, along with the Newcastle defense, likes of Livramento and Trippier. If I was to personally say that if you're playing defensive and production rank, try to cover these players that are highly on from this spreadsheet. However, if you're playing really attacking and chase, try to back against some of these players to gain an advantage on Free Hit Game Week 34. So yeah, that'll be it for Game Week 34. Let me know what you guys think. If you did enjoy the video and if it was really helpful, smash the like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any questions below, do ask me, whether if you have any 50-50s and whatnot. I'll also be doing a deadline stream come Saturday, so make sure to tune in for that. And I will see you guys next week. Peace out.